Well, hi there. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. What have you been talking about over the weekend? We're back with you. We missed you. Good to be back with you on Take Two. A lot of things, a lot of buzz going on, the Olympics and some exciting events there and happenings over the weekend, but kind of back to normalcy, if we can put it that way, if you're in the Monday through Friday routine that many of us are in. Debbie, good to see you again this morning, and I hope that you and Marty had a spectacular weekend.
We did. It was a wonderful weekend with family and friends, and I'm excited to be here today, and we wanted to share with you, dear listeners, that we love you. We truly love you as being part of the Take Two family. Do you kind of get the hint of what our today's show is? It's all about love, saying I love you. And it's an exciting show because you are going to make it happen. You are the driving force. Your call, your takes change the direction of the show. We're also talking about not only saying I love you, but showing affection to one another, being able to really relate in that loving manner. Do you say it through your words? Do you say it through your actions? How do you express love to one another? It's going to be a very, very a deep show. I think it's going to take some fabulous twists and turns, but you're it. You are the leader. 1-800-585-9396. Jerry, share with all of us how this show came to be.
Well, it was suggested by one of our listeners, and by the way, we always welcome your topic suggestions. You can email us at take2 at EWTN.com. But the person who suggested this said in his experience, he's a dad, he's got 4 kids, and in his own life, it took many, many years for his father to be able to say to him, I love you, and to show affection. And we see this a lot in families. Because, Debbie, sometimes we have not been nurtured with love and physical affection. We're talking about healthy touching and parents hugging their kids and really letting them know how much they are really loved. And if this is deficient in any way in our lives, in our own experience, then we have trouble with it as well. So, again, the phone lines are open right now at 1-800-585-9396. We want to hear from you. Does showing affection come easy for you, or do you feel a little self-conscious when telling your spouse or a child you love them or giving them a hug? And Debbie, sometimes guys tend to think, well, that's the affection stuff is for the ladies, and I'm, machismo. I'm the man, the husband, the father. So I want to hear from guys too. Can you tell your kids? Even adult kids, you love them and give them a hug when you see them. This is a very important topic because, Debbie, God is love. And Christian love is so important. We need to, what does the Bible say? They will know you are Christians by your love.
That's right. Interestingly enough, Jerry, when I was over in Italy, what I noticed, and I actually asked my mother this, and she said, oh yeah, in Europe, it's men will walk down the street together, even with their arms around each other, and just kind of even locking their arms and walking down the street. It's a common a showing of affection, of just that brotherly love. And in Europe, it seems so free. In America, we are, I think, a little bit more guarded with our physical affection. And the interesting thing about that is, even in working in the church, in ministry, or in the secular world, we have all kinds of safe environment rules, Jerry, that there's got to be side hugs. You can't necessarily put your arm around a child. You can't. In the old days, it seemed a lot less intimidating to just go up to someone and patting them on the shoulder and saying hi and maybe making that connection. Nowadays, it seems a little bit more guarded. I don't know how you feel about that. I notice, I know I used to be a safe environment trainer for our diocese here in Phoenix, and there's a lot of rules and regulations of what we can show in physical attention and not. And so I think that's an important factor to play in here. Maybe that's why some people have changed their disposition on how they relate to one another.
All right, well, phone lines are open right now. We are just underway in this new week of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, talking today about showing affection. Here's the number, 1-800-585-9396. Debbie makes a great point. I have to say that even in my own, at least my thinking, Debbie, not so much my behavior, but at least in my thinking, if I'm around small kids, a group environment, lots of adults, and of course I don't have any problems in this area, but the thought crosses my mind. It's like, it's really unfortunate, and I don't want the show to focus on that.
Right.
But it has changed. For example, you look until recent years, women would do this a lot in our country. Walk down the street, holding hands, give each other kisses, and you would just think, wow, they're just two really close female friends. But we want to hear from you, our listeners, how your experience was growing up. Did you receive that? Did you know by the healthy touching and hugs and the verbal affirmations of being told, I love you? Did you get that in your family? And these are things we want to hear about and how that's maybe translated into your own life as a parent now. 1-800-585-9396.
I came from a big Italian family, as our listeners know, and we were very big on hugging. My dad used to bear hug. I loved it. We all loved to run up to him, and he would just, it just felt wonderful to just go up. You felt safe, you felt secure, and you felt loved. And sometimes that can be the way to feel that the love is with a wonderful embracing hug, or maybe it's through actions you have felt love or you have shown love. We have different love languages, Jerry, and the way we give love and receive love is individual to all of us. And it's important for us to discuss it so we really know that there are many levels to it and how we are showing our love to others. Are we really expressing that love? Jerry, you know me, I say I love you all the time. It's always been my nature to do that. And I've actually had friends text me and say, oh, you say I love you to everybody. How do I know you really love me? I say, well, you got to trust me on that one because I really do. And it's very interesting. So maybe we can say I love you too much. You know, maybe there's not enough I love you, or maybe there's too much I love yous. We want to hear from you. You drive the show, dear listeners. What you say today could change a heart, could move a soul. Here come the calls. That's the way to do it. 1-800-585-9396. This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We're talking about, are you able to say I love you through your words and through your actions? Because we know that children grow up and they learn from us. They learn from those who are mentoring them and nurturing them and taking care of them. And they go into the world and then they become parents themselves. And it goes on and on. So how are we expressing love to one another? 1-800-585-9396.
Well, and Debbie, it's interesting. You shared very candidly about your family, big Italian family, lots of love, lots of hugs, lots of I love yous. As many people who listen to this show know, I had a very different family experience with my parents did not stay together. They divorced when I was 7. I never knew my father really much after that. And so I know that it had its impact on me. And many people who are listening now know that I, because of that, and I think many other things, I went through a period of depression. That was in 2011. And I'm just going to share this. I don't think I ever have before, but I would go see a priest every week during that time, and we would end our time together. He would hug me. And I would just weep. And he would just hold me. If it was 5 minutes, if it was 10 minutes, if it was 30 seconds, and I could pull away because I was stronger that day. But I know, Debbie, I know what it's like to be devoid of that. And so that's why this topic is so important. We were just simply talking about human beings. We are members of the human race. We are members of God's family. And we have to get this right. We have to. It's so, Debbie, I think it has such an impact on so many other parts of our lives, our ability to make commitments, lifelong commitments, to be healthy parents to our own kids and things like this. So anyway, like you said, Deb, the phone lines are starting to fill up there. So we're going to get to those here in just a couple minutes.
But there's an open phone line just for you. So don't hesitate. If the Spirit is prompting you, call in at 1-800-585-9396. We're talking about sharing our love today. Do you say I love you? Do you receive the I love yous? maybe you express it in actions. We want to hear from you. This is an important topic because God calls us to love. God is love. So call in.
Coming up later today on Cresta in the Afternoon.
Our topics during Cresta in the Afternoon toggle between church teaching and then using that teaching to shine a light on our world. We'll look at Christ in culture, church and world, religion and public life, from abortion to Zechariah and everything in between. Biblical criticism, Hollywood productions, academic debate, family and love, prayer and spirituality.
Cresta in the Afternoon, later today on EWTN Radio.
Get an insider's look at the latest information from EWTN. Sign up for Wings, EWTN's weekly email newsletter. Get the latest information about live events, special features, and guests. Connect with EWTN on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Just go to EWTN.com and click on the Wings link to sign up. Don't miss a minute of all that's happening at EWTN. Get your wings today.
Welcome to EWTN's Catholic Almanac.
Today is August 8th, the memorial of St. Dominic, founder of the Dominican order in 1215. Dominic received a vision from Our Lady asking him to teach the rosary to others. He used the rosary to convert many to the faith. And on this day in 1910, the Vatican issued the decree Quam Singulare, instructing that children were to receive first confession and then communion upon reaching the age of reason, around the age of 7.
This is Bishop Paul Bradley of the Diocese of Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Hi, this is Tim Staples from Catholic Answers Live.
This is Father John Ricardo. Thanks for listening to the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Your takes always drive this program. Debbie and I are here to fill in some gaps here and there, but we really love your insights and your own personal experiences on the topics that we discuss. 1-800-585-9396. Talking today about showing affection. Is it easy for you? Is it difficult? Maybe based on your own, maybe not having healthy affection modeled for you in your early life. Did you have a great home life where you just felt just secure and stable and loved, and you just knew it? You just really knew that all the time. So give us a call here. Patricia has started things off in Salem, Mass, listening to EWTN Radio on the Station of the Cross. Hi, Patricia. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hello.
Hello, Patricia. You're on the air.
Yes, I wanted to share that growing up, I did not receive demonstrative love from my parents, and it was a painful growing up for me. I am very emotional, and it was very difficult. I didn't feel validated, and I searched. It's been a search for my whole life to find that.
Well,
Patricia,
interesting.
Yeah, go ahead, Jerry. No, go ahead.
I was going to ask Patricia, when you said it's been a search to find that. I know what the that is, but would you? For me, it was a search to find them, or in my case, him, my father. So maybe I don't know, how has that search gone for you, and have you grown in this area to especially love yourself? I would say. How has that gone?
Not well. I think that there are times when I feel that love, that because I know that God loves me, it's an intellectual love as opposed to an experiential love, and that's something that I struggle with also. But also to find that validation, that in a partner, in a marriage, I don't have that.
Patricia, when you said that growing up, it wasn't demonstrative in the home, but was love shown through actions? Were you able to derive that sense of feeling secure and safe and nurtured and loved through the elements in the home?
Not emotionally, but I had food. I had a very nice home physically, family vacations, enough clothing. My education was paid for. It was all the material things of life, but that part of my spirit that really wanted the validation, that really wanted and needed to be touched, as you've talked about before, to be loved, was not there.
Huh. Did you ever discuss that with your family, or has where's the family dynamic today?
My parents are both deceased.
Okay, and before they left this earth, did you ever discuss that? Like, had Mom and Dad, how come we never really showed love through hugs and through? I mean, was that no?
No, I did not. My father was very strong, very authoritarian, and my mother was not warm. So no, I never discussed it.
Well, the reason why I say that, Patricia, is because I have a girlfriend who similar situation as yours, grew up the same way, great education, great home, but there wasn't a lot of affection shown, and she actually talked about it to her dad before her dad passed, and asked why there wasn't the hugs and the pats on the head and the kisses and all that kind of stuff that happens in a family, and he said he just never grew up that way, and he shared a story with her of how he grew up, and it really helped her to be able to reconcile it inside of her heart. And all of a sudden, all those years of her thinking that there was something that didn't feel right, was void of the affection there, all of a sudden made sense because she understood his story. And that's the reason why I asked you, because not that it's going to make up for all those years that there wasn't that physical attention, but it does help to put the puzzle pieces together so that you can start to feel like, no, it didn't have something to do with me. It was the way they grew up. It was the way they understood how to show love. So that's why I brought that up. I was just curious as if you ever...
Well,
yeah.
I do understand what you're saying, and so no, I do not have the opportunity to have that discourse. I have come to the point where I believe, in my intellect, not in my heart, but in my intellect, that I was loved because I was taken care of materially. But that part of me, again, not to be redundant, but that part of me that needed those hugs, those kisses, those validations, or, oh, Patricia, you're really wonderful, or Patricia, we're so glad we had you, eat with words, or whatever, that part of me has a huge hole.
Right. And like you alluded to, Patricia, God is the ultimately the one who can fill that, and that relationship with God becomes difficult as well. I've had the same experience in moving from, like you said, you have an intellectual understanding that God loves you, but that needs to make its way that short distance from the head to the heart. And trust me, Patricia, it can and it will, because it did for me. God finally worked that, I don't know if it's a miracle or not, but he finally made my heart see and know and trust beyond the shadow of a doubt that he loves me. And it changed everything about my life. And so I'm going to pray for that for you. And I know Debbie will, and all of our Take Two family, because, Patricia, you are loved. And whether you heard it or not when you were young, you had and have great potential, and I'm sure you're doing great things in your life. And so please know that God does love you in your heart, and pray that he will make that very, very secure in your heart as well as in your mind. So we're going to pray for you, Patricia. How's that?
I thank you for that, because that is, I do pray for that. I do pray that I do not have the focus on myself, but I can love others, because I do believe it is through loving others that what you receive is beyond measure. I do believe that, and so I do pray for that, but sometimes it's very difficult to even love others when you feel so empty inside. So I thank you for your prayers, and I'll let you go back to your show, and I thank you for your time, and God bless you all.
God bless you, Patricia.
Thanks, Patricia, for sharing your heart with us. We appreciate it so very, very much. Okay, the number to call is 1-800-585-9396. And if you would like to share your story or your experience and impart some wisdom, it can help us all grow together so we can understand what it really means to love and to be loved. So you got to dial in, though. We don't know what you're thinking unless you call in 1-800-585-9396. Okay, AJ, you are in, is it Iowa? I think it's Iowa. I couldn't see Jerry. I'm not going to even say.
Give it a shot, Debbie.
Well, I have to, the computer won't go far enough away from my eyes so I can see it. The older I get. Iowa. All right. Okay, AJ.
AJ, how do you say the name of your, what is it? EJ.
TJ,
Oh, EJ.
like tiger, like TJ.
Oh, TJ.
okay.
We have. Okay, I know I'm seeing AJ on the screen, so I know my eyes are working. Okay, so TJ, and tell us the name of your town. I didn't even want to take a chance on it.
Knoke, Knoke.
Knoke, Iowa.
Knoke,
Yeah.
Iowa.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And,
so tell us real quickly. And forgive me. You said TJ. What does that stand for? Thomas James or Thomas John or
Terrence Joseph.
Terrence Joseph. Okay, you got St. Joseph in there. Okay, go ahead,
Yeah.
TJ. Now we're all set. Now we know you better.
All right. Thank you. When I was little, you would hug your mom and dad before you go to bed, give them a kiss. And then as you got older, that was yucky. You didn't do that anymore. So you just knew your parents loved you, even though they might not show it per se, but in their actions, you knew it. Like, because my mom fed all 11 of us every day, plus worked a full-time nursing job. And my dad worked 1 and 2 jobs his whole life. He took us on vacations, and you just felt the love, even though they didn't articulate it all the time. And then as I got older, I joined a prayer group, and they always hug you after the prayer group, and I didn't like that. And but then as the years went by, and now 25 years have gone by, I love those hugs, and I've gotten used to them, and I crave them, and it's pretty cool. And then before my mom died, one of my sisters made her write a journal about every one of her thoughts about raising us and stuff. And mine was like 5 pages long, maybe, and it was just beautiful. Every one of us kids, she wrote all these incredible things about us. Some of them were a little painful, but truthful and loving. And I had no idea my mother could write like that, and my dad was a good writer. So it was quite a gift to read that. And it took me a long time to read it after she died because it was painful to open up the wounds of not having her anymore. And but I was looking for that notebook. I was going to read what she wrote about me, but I can't find it.
Oh, that's too bad. It sounds like a beautiful exercise, and I had something similar, TJ, but it was actually in person before my mother passed away. I didn't get to do this with my father, and I want to share this on the show sometime before we end today. Have that sort of that talk, like, Dad, you weren't in my life, and I know you and Mom divorced, but you really could have kind of sought us out and been more involved in this and that. But I'll share that a little bit later. But speaking of, I did have a chance to have a very tearful, emotional, and in many ways healing conversation with my mother, and it was very two-way. It was Mom. I said, Mom, here are some things that I think were not in my favor as we were growing up that you might have perpetrated. And Mom, here, I know I was very, very ugly to you sometimes, and it was a very beautiful thing. So TJ, I hope that is bringing you some sense of peace and closure and reconciliation in that relationship.
Oh, yes, it does, and I look forward to meeting them should I attain heaven, and that's my goal, again, because I believe they're both saints in their own way.
Well, and TJ, what's so beautiful is your family has the journals that your mother prepared, and I think that's awesome to be able to have those as tangible evidence that your parents loved you, and that's a wonderful thing. I mean, you're making me think of that because my mother's 85. I think I need to have her write down something about me so I can remember.
Oh, yes, Debbie, do that.
I will. That's that helps all of us. We should really do that to get it down on paper and to have that journal and to have that you can share with your family and it can go on and on, the legacy of your entire family. So TJ, thanks for that. Thanks for the call and thanks for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you, and thanks for having me.
Bless you, TJ. Hey, Debbie, careful what you ask for.
Oh, I know. Well, my mother loves me.
I know your mother would have nothing. She would have nothing but beautiful things to say.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe not. She kicked me out of the car when I was 15. So, yeah.
She is Italian. She'd have to throw in a couple of darts in there, I think.
Yeah, she has to.
It would be full of great things.
Well, it's like what TJ said. There's all the good, but there's also the painful of growing up too. I mean, I wasn't a perfect child. I mean, I know I've gotten a little bit better as I got older, but it's a work in progress, Jerry. Oh, dear listeners, you are awesome. You're calling in and sharing your stories about how you received love, how you give love, and how you are today with with feeling love all around us. God talks about love. God is love. So stay with us on Take Two.
I'm Raymond Arroyo with Mother Angelica, A Remarkable Life. Mother Angelica went to McKinley High, and in 1940, she failed her junior year. To compensate, she went to summer school, taking a collection of courses that at the time were designed to merely get her a diploma. They included blueprint reading, salesmanship, and economics, all courses that would serve her very well in later life. Stay with EWTN as we continue to celebrate the life and legacy of Mother Mary Angelica.
60 Seconds with Father Mitch Pacwa.
The priest must approach the Word of God with a docile and prayerful heart, so that when we prepare our sermons, we're not just coming up with cutesy stories, rather we pray over the text. I especially love to pray over the text in the chapel before the Blessed Sacrament, because the Jesus about whom I'm reading is the same Jesus present in that sacrament, and I want Him to speak to my heart. This is going to be very important so that the Word of God may penetrate the thoughts of a priest. They may penetrate his feelings, bring about a whole new outlook toward the world. We don't look at the world on the basis of the world's ideas and assumptions. My norm for Scripture does not come from the scholars. My norm for those of us in scholarship come from Scripture. And we must submit to the Word of God. That must be key here.
The people you know and trust are on EWTN.
Always great to have you with us. Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Busy phones. We're going right back to them. 1-800-585-9396. We were talking about healthy affection, love. Kids need it. We adults, we need it. Sometimes we get our ability to show or speak affection to others. It can be hindered sometimes by our own experiences. And I just want to mention real quickly here, too, before we go to Kay in New York, that I also believe, Debbie, and I'm sure you would agree, that a proper form of love and affection has to also include discipline. So we're not talking here about touchy-feely, oh, you're just fantastic, you can fly to the moon if you want when you're grown up, and just love and hugs and kisses and all this stuff without discipline. Any parent who knows what's best for his or her child is going to include discipline in that love, because if you love them, you're going to want to make sure that they play in the sandbox and don't run out into the street, especially when they're older. So I just wanted to make that point, that we're not talking about this pop psych, touchy-feely, all hugs, all kisses, without any sort of moral restraints or discipline. So,
right. And
anyway.
And no, Jerry, I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't want our listeners to think that I grew up in a Leave It to Beaver family where all there were just hugs and kisses and oh, mom, and pinching of the cheeks. Oh, you're such a great little kid. It was not like that at all. In fact, and by all accounts, my family was quite dysfunctional. I'll be honest with you. And so, you're right, Jerry. Love has many different forms, and I personally feel, and I know our faith teaches us this, that the only love that we can count on is God's love, the perfect love. And we're always going to feel a sense of void, a sense of wanting and longing in this world, because this is an imperfect love here, and God is the perfect love. So I want to just put that into perspective as well, Jerry. I'm glad you brought up that insight about love is in many forms. Okay, Kay, you are waiting so patiently in New York, listening to EWTN Radio. Hi, Kay. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi. Okay. Well, you pretty much said a lot of it. Again, with my experience with my parents, it ended up not being a very happy marriage. But the thing of it is, they stayed together, and I didn't realize this, until years later. Obviously, for the sake of keeping a family together. I mean, I think there's some people that probably never should have gotten married, but I think I came from an Italian family as well, and my father was the only son with all sisters, so they expected the son to carry on the name. But I think if it were up to my father, he never would have gotten married, and he waited until he was about 30, and finally said, okay, I just have to do it, and met my mother and all that. So he was never really an involved father. He just felt his responsibility was to make sure that roof over our head, clothes, that kind of thing. We would sometimes take family vacations, but I knew the marriage was very unhappy. My mother tried very hard, but there was just a lot of problems. So it wasn't until my 50s that one day, I don't know where this came from, but my father just suddenly, he walked in the room and he looked at me and he said, I wasn't a very good father, was I? And it just took me by surprise because my father was not a demonstrative person. And again, it was even though it was an Italian family, we were very formal about everything. No emotions are to be shown. And I was so taken by surprise that I just said, well, you did your best, and then he just walked away and no further discussion, and it was never brought up again. So the way I kind of resolved it for myself is that I just tried to do the best I could for them. I realized that they tried to do their best for me in their own way, because when I looked at my grandfather was just a very grumpy man who just never got involved with his family. My grandmother worked like a dog, died young because she had 5 children with no help from him. So this is what my father saw. And so for myself, what really healed me was the fact that God has promised someday a new heaven and a new earth. And of course, I pray very hard because we know our parents' faults. And it's not the elevator to heaven that everyone hears about at funerals today. And express elevator, I should say. So I pray for their soul. I pray that they're in heaven. So someday I can see them in their perfection. And of course, for myself growing up, because I felt hurt, I sometimes did things that were hurtful to them. So it was a two-way thing, and I have to admit that also for myself. And now, of course, I'm very sorry I did all those things, and it haunts me today of some of the things that I did that were kind of mean-spirited. But so I contributed to a point because I was hurt. But I look forward to the day for that perfect relationship that we're going to have. I will be in perfection, they will be in perfection, and everything we missed will all be there and more than we can ever imagine.
Wow, Kate, thank you for sharing all of that. And I would like to zero in with a question back to you, if you're comfortable answering this. And maybe you've not pondered it much, maybe you have, but there's a reason why I'm asking it, and that is you said that when your father made the comment, "I haven't been a very good dad," and you were, of course, caught off guard. But the only thing you could really think of to say was, "Well, you did the best you could." I have to believe that there was a lot more you wish you would have said to him at that time, but you just didn't feel that you could. Have you given thought to that as to why that's really all that came out at that time?
Yes, and I knew that's all I could say to him, because my father, again, was not the type. I never saw my father cry. Even when he was so close to his mother, but he would never let us see him cry. Everything was kept inside with him. Everything kept inside. And he was not the kind of person that you could just, let's reach across the table and let's just, communicate and talk. That would have been even more uncomfortable for him. And I knew that, and I sensed that about him. So I said what I said, and that was enough for him.
Okay. Well, again, the reason I asked, as I mentioned earlier in the show, I was going to share real briefly. When my father died, he was in the hospital for several days. I was living about 1,000 miles away, but I flew. This was up in Seattle, and I flew there. And there were 5 of us kids, and we sort of orchestrated it so a couple of us would be in his hospital room, and one would kind of just sort of slip out, and we'd have one-on-one time, and somebody else would come in, and the other one. So I'm sure he realized what was going on. We were trying to set it up so we each had some private time with him, and I simply could not say, I knew what I wanted to say. Dad, I've been looking for you my whole life. Dad, where were you? Dad, why did all of this stuff? And it was just like, wow, the sun's out today. It's warm out. Yeah, it's a warm one. Yeah, hey, did you see the football game the other day? And so, because I think even as we're adults, we look at our parents, they still, certainly when we're kids, parents can do no wrong. They walk on water. And I think, in my case, I would have felt that it was disrespecting my father to bring that up, even though at that moment we were two adult men sitting there together in a room, and it could have been, I could have made more of an effort to perhaps bring about some closure in our relationship. So that's why I asked. I just think we retain, Debbie, that admiration and respect and view of our parents that sometimes prohibits us from even having truthful conversations with them like that.
Right, from expressing what's really in our heart. But Kay, interestingly enough, in your situation, even though you were shocked that your dad said that, you realized that it was probably all he could handle at that moment. And so
Yeah, and if I may say, regarding the situation when with your father, as dying, you to me, it's if you want to unload on someone that's dying because you just want to express your own feelings, I think that in a sense is a selfish thing to do in a way, and I'm not trying to be harsh here, and I've known people that have done that, and it's like the person is dying, they're trying to resolve things. They may need to spend time in purgatory. They know everything they did wrong, and they just can't face you to tell you. But through your actions, just like through their actions with you when they tried to show you love, but not in the way you wanted it, they tried. Mm-hmm. And so I will be at peace at the fact that you did not try to push things at that point with your father when he was in the hospital. I think you actually were merciful to him, that you didn't bring those things up and cause more stress for him to have him start to bring all these painful emotional things out, because at that point it was like he knew the wrongs that he did.
Yeah, and Kay, you make a good point. It probably was partly a selfish thought on my part, and I do believe that a big part of my motivation for not going there was simply, well, what's the use right now? Like you said, he's in the situation that he's in, and that may not necessarily help matters. So I know that was in the back of my mind as well, but it wasn't. I just felt like I wanted to kind of, I don't know who he was or something, and maybe that's part of it's selfish, but I also think part of it's very natural. The parent-child bond is so very, very strong, and it never ends. And if it's been if it hasn't been expressed in a healthy way, I think it's just natural for us to want to try to regain that, but maybe in certain situations it's not possible. So Kay, thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate the insight into that.
Okay. I hope I wasn't too harsh.
No, not
Kay,
at all.
Never, ever. We always say on this show, we welcome anything because we learn a lot, and I'm going to take that, and I'm going to pray about that. And of course, I pray for my parents every day, and I, like you, Kay, I believe they're in a good place. There may be some final cleansing going on, but I look forward to that beautiful reunion that we're all going to have. So Thank you, Kay.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Kay. God bless you, and thanks for calling in.
Right.
Okay, dear listeners, there are there's 2 open phone lines. You can jump in before the end of the show if you want to call in real quickly at 1-800-585-9396. We're talking about showing and expressing love today. Sherry, you have been waiting so patiently in Bloomington, Indiana, listening to EWTN Radio on Redeemer Radio. Hi, Sherry. Welcome to Take 2.
Hi, how are you guys?
Doing well. Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. I love listening to your radio station. I've learned so much in my faith. I've been Catholic all my life.
Oh, praise God.
Yes, and thank God to my mother, because my mother married my dad when he got out of the service during World War II, and he was Catholic because he had a girlfriend that was Catholic, and he became Catholic because of her. And then when he came back from the war, he was no longer Catholic, and we used to have to fight to go to church, and my mom would put us in the car and drive us to church like at 6:30 Mass in the morning, but we always made it to church, and we were never allowed to pray at the table or pray openly in front of him. But why I'm calling is my mother is a saint. She put up with my dad for 40 years, and finally she did divorce him, and he was not a loving dad. He was a child molester from the time I probably was very, very young. I don't even remember when it all started. But, of course, my mother never knew until 40 years later, and that's when she left him. I look back at that, and I still, to this day, feel sadness in my heart because I didn't have the dad that I have. But God has blessed me, truly blessed me, with the most wonderful son-in-law who is so good to my daughter and is an awesome dad to my two grandkids. And I think God has truly blessed me because of that. And I'm still struggling with, not the no love and everything that I went through as a child. And I know when we pray and we say, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those that trespass against us, I pray for my dad, but I don't feel like it's coming from my heart. So it troubles me that I feel like God knows that this is not truly from me. I'm just saying the words. Through my life, I have learned, through my mom's faith, she taught us our catechism and taught us all our prayers, and she's made me the Catholic that I am today. So I grew up loving everybody, loved to hug. My mom wasn't a big hugger, but I knew she loved me. But God has really given me the grace through my life to be as happy as I can be. Even though I still hold on to all that, I still am a very happy person. I still love everybody. I still hug everybody. They may give me a crazy look like, what's wrong with you? But it's a grace that I just feel that grace of God always around me. I do. So, sometimes you aren't blessed with both parents that are wonderful and both parents that show love. But if you've got a strong parent that, is faith-filled, you can get through anything.
That's a really, really good point, Sherry. I'm glad you brought it up because Jerry and I were talking before the show started about how so many saints came from dysfunctional upbringings, dysfunctional families. Yeah, and if you have that one, what I like to call that lighthouse, that immovable lighthouse of a parent, and it sounds like you had that with your mother. She was, and I love the way you just said my mother was a saint, and it's beautiful because you can hold on to that and you can cling to that. First of all, when you were sharing from your heart, I just wanted to say, for whatever it's worth, I'm sorry you had to go through what you went through as a small child. I'm sorry, and my heart breaks as a parent because no child wants to feel in that powerless situation and to have no real resources maybe to reach out to, and my heart goes out to you for that. But what I love in your story is that you're so real and honest about how you pray for your dad, and you said the emotions, the feelings aren't there. But as a sister in Christ, Sherry, I just want to say I think that's beautiful that you even make the effort to do that, even though you're kind of discrediting the fact that there's no maybe real feelings behind the words that you're saying in the prayer, but you're saying it, and so there's merit in that.
And I will tell you this: I have two brothers, and we were the example of awesome kids. We were born in 1947. I'm almost 70. And the only way we got through that was by God and my mom, and we had a terrible childhood, and I just can remember like it vividly. I still have recall of everything, and when it stopped was when I was going into puberty, and not being able to talk to anybody because there were no resources, and the horrible trauma that you feel even as an adult, but. By the grace of God, I still have the flashbacks, and I still talk about it. And I know people don't probably like my family get tired of hearing it, but I just feel the power of God all around me. So I thank my mother for that, and I thank my awesome priest for that. So I feel truly blessed. I am truly blessed.
And you sound it, Sherry. I have to just tell you something, though. I'm happy you disclosed your age. Jerry and I thought you were both in your 30s. I mean, your voice sounds.
Well, thank you.
Well, you sound so full of life.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
you know,
yeah,
Sherry.
I'm a crazy person. I do all kinds of stuff. So I love life, and I love, God has given me this grace to love people. I just, people probably think I'm crazy because I just want to hug them. And I saw a kid in the grocery store one day, and he looked like he needed a hug. His hands were all dirty he looked like he was working on a car. And I just wanted to go over there and hug him, but I didn't. But
yeah.
I felt that. So I think that God has given me that grace to feel that. It's a wonderful feeling. It's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, you can hear it in your voice. So you've obtained that. See, that's what's great about your call. See, your call, your life story is going to help others to be able to tap into that grace. Absolutely, Sherry.
Yeah,
Amen
for
to
sure.
that. Oh.
Thank you, Sherry. Great to hear from you.
God bless you guys, and thank you for all you do. And I love, love, love this radio station.
Thank you very much, Sherry.
God bless.
Appreciate the call.
Bye-bye.
All right, speaking of waiting patiently, Amaris, if I got the name right, gets our Patience Award in Dickinson, North Dakota, listening to EWTN Radio on Real Presence Radio. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Is it Amaris?
It is Amaris. Good morning.
Amaris, good morning. Thanks for calling.
Lots of good stuff this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Well, you were talking about love, and I just want to give a little bit of history. I grew up down in Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. I was raised by my dad's mom and dad, and my dad's dad was a priest. He was one of the first Native American priests ordained in the state of North Dakota. He served at St. Thomas in Fort Taunton for a few years, I remember. But I grew up down there and going to church every Sunday, and I learned about love through him, through the Bible, and through Jesus Christ. I later, around 8 or 9 years old, moved back to another res, which is in Spirit Lake, around Devil's Lake area, and I was then taken care of by my mother. And I love my mother with my whole heart, but when we were growing up, she didn't show us the affection and love. She had other values to teach us through our culture, which was similar, but the affection part wasn't there. I grew up learning how to love like Jesus did, through his teachings, through the stories, through my own experiences. And now that I'm grown, I try to teach others about love. Our reservation is stricken by drugs and alcohol, and now it's like at its worst, at the all-time high. And our families are really struggling with accepting that and learning how to continue to love each other with all these bad things going on around us. And I just want to remind, anybody that can comprehend, what I'm speaking about is that love, the unconditional love that I've experienced has never let me see people for what they've done, how they look, where they live, or anything about them. But the love that I have for them, it shows me who they are and that they do need to be loved regardless of what they're going through.
Wow, Amaris, you have cracked the code, if I can put it that way. If every human on the face of the earth could learn the lesson you've learned, if I can put it that way, or receive the insight, or come to this understanding that you have come to, that is what it is all about. We don't want to discard the sins that we commit or that others commit.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus says you will know others by their fruit, but we don't want to lead with that. We want to lead with looking at every person with their inherent human dignity and loving them for who they are first and what they are, no matter what they've done. And then we can get somewhere with people, maybe trying to help them even be even better. But Debbie, I'm just blown away by this account that Amaris is sharing.
Oh yeah, Amaris, it helps us tremendously. It's really unconditional love with true no expectations, and it really does set the stage for God to enter in, if you will, because there's no pretenses. And I think it's amazing what you just shared. I think it's eye-opening for all of us to lead with that, and I hope that's what you were trying to share with all of us. Yeah,
well, it was really my 14-year-old daughter, who kind of like opened my eyes to that. Last year I had a suicide scare with her, and since then she's found Christ, on her own, and she doesn't she gets frustrated when she's trying to deal with her peers and they're so young, you know. She tries to remind them, you know, to love blindly like she does.
Right.
And we're stuck between, you know, ceremonies and church and values and all these things. And my 14-year-old is just like, Mom, it's so hard to talk to these kids because I'm a Christian and all I know is love in my heart. And it's hard to teach that to my peers when they're not shown that love. And so that's, you know, what she wants to get a message to her peers. So I'm trying to do the same. She's a really good example for me, too.
Yeah, your daughter is a gift. I mean, that's
what
amazing.
What a great gift to have that, and your daughter. Amaris, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for listening to Real Presence Radio. We're going to keep you in your prayers and ask that you keep us in your prayers as well, if you would.
Of course.
All right, thank you, Amaris. Quickly to Victoria. We got about a minute and a half. So, Victoria, listening to EWTN Radio on the Station of the Cross in Boston. If you can be brief, Victoria, we'll get you on the air here. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing
love
better
your
now
show. So, you know, you guys are talking about love, and I think in my family, I grew up, my grandparents were affectionate with us. My mom and dad had a terrible marriage, and my story is similar to Sherry's. And so, you know, with my father taking advantage of my sisters, it didn't happen to me, but I knew it happened to my sisters. And so that, you know, creates a little bit of apprehension and mistrust. And then when I went to school, you know, teachers, people that were that should have been good examples, guides to children, also took advantage of them. So I think from my childhood experience, I have a bit of apprehension, but certainly like in my personal family life, through my extended family, I really learned to love. They were very supportive. I can do that for my son now. Be supportive and loving. But I find that there's definitely, there's a distinction, and I'm more cautious. I love the Lord, and I try to live a good, faithful Catholic life, and I think that's helped a great deal. But
well, Victoria, on that note, we should have our. There we go. There's our closing music. Apologies for jumping in there, Victoria, but we just have to be out here at the end of this minute. But what I'm taking away from your call is that you've made the effort, as have all those who have called in, and all of our listeners. Debbie, we talked about this on a previous show. Love is a choice. And we all have it in us, Debbie, regardless of what has happened to us. It's in all of us. Victoria, bless you. Thanks for your call. We greatly appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, Victoria. Tomorrow's show, we're going to talk about, do you feel safe in today's world? It's going to be another great show. But, dear listeners, we want you to know from our hearts to yours, we do love you. And have a beautiful and blessed day.